What if Dexter Morgan hunted down real-life serial killers? Starting with Jeffrey Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, he killed 17 young men between 1978 and 1991. He lured his victims to his home with promises of money or alcohol before drugging and killing them. He had a degree of manipulation and long-term discretion, but his lack of caution remained his main weakness. Against Dexter Morgan, he would be quickly identified. Dexter would recognize his patterns and instability. Without a real strategy, Dahmer would be isolated and eliminated, ending up on Dexter's table. Next, Ted Bundy was a charismatic and intelligent serial killer, having murdered at least 30 women in the 1970s. He used his appearance and charm to gain his victims' trust before kidnapping them. He also managed to escape from prison twice. His strength lay in his ability to blend into society and deceive those around him, making him difficult to detect. Against Dexter Morgan, Bundy represented a more complex target than Dahmer. Dexter would first need to break through his social mask and constant lies. But once his patterns were identified, his flaws would become visible, especially his ego and need for control. Dexter would eventually track him down methodically and neutralize him, placing him on his table as well. Finally, Dennis Rader, known as BTK, murdered 10 people between 1974 and 1991 while living a normal life as a family man and respected member of his community. He managed to maintain a double life for decades without raising suspicion. However, his constant need for attention led him to send letters detailing his crimes to the police and the media. Against Dexter, that arrogance would be a fatal mistake. Every message he sent would leave exploitable clues and draw Dexter's attention. And once identified, BTK would struggle to escape such a methodical hunt. In the end, his need for recognition would likely lead to his downfall, making him just another trophy for Dexter. What if Dexter Morgan hunted down real-life serial killers Part 2? Starting with Ed Gein, known as the Butcher of Plainfield, he terrorized Wisconsin in the 1950s. Although he was officially linked to only 2 murders, he also robbed graves and kept numerous objects made from human remains in his home. His main strength was his discretion. He lived in isolation and attracted little attention. However, his morbid obsession led him to keep evidence directly in his house. Against Dexter Morgan, this mistake would be fatal. Dexter would quickly notice the disappearances and suspicious behavior surrounding Ed Gein. Once his secret was uncovered, it would be enough for him to trace him back to his farmhouse to confirm his suspicious. In the end, Ed Gein not be able to hide his crimes for long and would inevitably end up on Dexter's table. Next, Richard Ramirez spread terror in California during the 1980s with a series of extremely violent crimes. He attacked at night, randomly broke into houses, and used various methods to kill his victims. His unpredictability was his greatest strength, making his movements and attacks difficult to anticipate. Despite his brutality, he still regularly left traces behind him. Against Dexter Morgan, Ramirez would represent a dangerous target. Dexter would need to carefully study him before acting in order to understand his habits. But once those clues were connected, Ramirez would eventually be located. His lack of discretion would ultimately allow Dexter to find him and bring him to his table. Finally, John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, lived a double life, a respected businessman in public, a murderer in secret. Between 1972 and 1978, he killed at least 33 young men and teenagers, often luring them into his home before murdering them. His strength lay in his ability to hide his true nature behind a reassuring image. However, his repetitive behavior and modus operandi eventually led to his downfall. Against Dexter, this pattern would quickly attract attention. Dexter would notice the disappearances linked to Gacy and identify his habits. Once his secret was uncovered, he would not be given any chance. In the end, Gacy would end up like all the others on Dexter's table.